time for Flashback Friday here at Rivals.com, and we are talking about Justin Fields, former five-star. He will be making his NFL starting debut for the Chicago Bears this weekend. Mike, when we remember Justin as a player, what's the first thing that pops to mind for you?
First thing for me is the five-star challenge in Indianapolis. Not just not being able to use the indoor facilities and having to use the porta potty that Andrew Luck used, but also the competition between him and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, they were very well. Justin was competitive. Trevor's a competitive person, but I don't think he cared as much about the 1 versus 2 battle in the country in that class. But it came down to the end. Justin Fields hit Amon-Ra St. Brown with a great pass to win the 7-on-7, and we give Trevor the MVP because he was better in the one-on-ones in the earlier session, and Justin Fields was not happy, and neither was his dad, but competitive fire. So when it came out, that he wasn't the first guy to the building and he wasn't that competitive, all that garbage that I think Dan Orlovsky threw out there that he had heard, we never saw
ridiculous.
That. Yeah, we never saw that.
Justin, okay, so this is how much that stuck with him. I saw him at the Home Depot awards thing after his sophomore year at Ohio State. And he said, I'm still mad I didn't get that. I didn't get that award. I mean, he was still mad about it. And of course, he did a commercial where he busted out his rival's belt, which was a big deal when he was talking about his most prized possessions. So that was cool as well. But I remember he missed the Atlanta camp. That was the camp, of course, where we had Matt Corral and Trevor Lawrence and Emory Jones and Harrison Bailey. And he wasn't there because he had something else going on. I think it was baseball. And so he was supposed to come to the camp in Charlotte, and then he had a baseball game the day before, and he got hurt. He had hurt his ankle. And then he came anyway the next day, and he was kind of gimping around. And if you watch the video, I think you even commented on it during the draft process. You were like, oh, look at this video, blah, blah, blah. But he was hurt during that time. So the whole stupid anonymous scouts worried about that was one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. That just shows, like, this is my problem with NFL teams allegedly do all this homework. They don't do that much homework because, I mean, look at Isaiah Wilson. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
stuff slips through the cracks. But anyway,
we didn't know. Yeah, you could do all these checks on kids and all this other stuff. Some of it's legit, some of it's not. That's clearly not legitimate. It never was about Justin Fields. I mean, he transferred for a reason. It's because he wanted to play. He was very, very competitive throughout everything we ever did. I remember insisting on giving out the awards that year in Indianapolis because I wanted to be in a picture with Trevor Lawrence because I knew how good he was going to be. And I remember the stink eye that Justin Fields gave me when I announced him as the quarterback MVP. And I'm like, well, you're going to be good too. He should have been the number 2 pick in the draft over Zach Wilson. I mean, he slid. It wasn't because of the work ethic things and all that stuff, but sometimes you dig too deep and you think too much. And there was no question for us that in this draft, it should have been Lawrence Fields.
So going back to when he first popped on the scene, I'm not sure he'd even started yet in high school, like full-time at least. I know he played a little bit. And it was back in the QB challenge days. And that was hard. We'd have to fill a camp with 100 quarterbacks or however many it was, 75 to 100.
75.
Yeah, there's not that many, there's not 75 FBS quarterbacks in Georgia or whatever, or wherever we were. And so I remember I hit up Ron Veal, who's a quarterback coach here in Atlanta, Coach Trevor as well. And I said, hey, mate, who are some young guys, who you got for me, basically? And Justin was one of the guys he sent. And if you look back at the video, he's at the same event as Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones at that regional QB challenge event. That was the first time you had ever seen Trevor, I think, in person. Actually, no, it was the year after that. Trevor was already number 1 at that point. But anyway, fast forward a few months, we invite him to the underclassmen challenge. He comes there. Trevor was also there. He did pretty well. That was in the Georgia Dome. And we were filling out that Rivals 250, the initial one. We needed like 8 guys, 10 guys at the end. We wanted to take a shot on him. We ended up putting him in there. So there, he started out as a 4-star, and there was always this narrative that, oh, he was a 3-star committed to Penn State. No, maybe on some sites he was. Not on our site. He did not come out of nowhere. We knew who he was. Plenty of schools wanted him when he was still committed to Penn State. Yeah, then obviously his recruitment took off after his junior year and in that summer before his senior year. But I mean, this was a guy we were on from the time he was a sophomore in high school. So it's just funny how the story changes over the years because other people were sleeping. He was a sleeper, even though we were awake.
And how different would the Big Ten have been if he went to Penn State?
Oh, man.
They had Trace McSorley, who was a good quarterback and a good player, but it would have been difference-making, certainly, for the Nittany Lions, and I think you would have seen maybe a couple Big Ten titles.
Yeah, that was a great early eval by Penn State, too. I mean, and they wanted him badly, and unfortunately they didn't keep him, but the pull down here for him to go to Georgia was crazy. I mean, they needed him, they wanted him so bad, and they got him. And we saw the way it didn't work out there. And Kirby Smart probably should have made the change, a la Kelly Bryant to Trevor Lawrence, because it was almost identical situation where Jake Fromm brought him to the national championship game. Kelly Bryant had taken Clemson to the playoff.
Yeah,
but you got to go with the talent ultimately.
Well, and the Bears have been using Fields like Kirby did. I don't know if you watch any NFL, but he's freaking running the ball and I'm like, what are you doing? Come on, this guy. I think he's not a dual threat. He's a pro-style quarterback.
Right. Well, you can really run. I mean, he does pack a punch when he can run. But
so can Trevor, but they're both pro-style quarterbacks to me.
Right. So anyway, we're looking forward to seeing how Justin does. I mean, it just was. He's a great story. I'm glad he's getting a chance to start. I hope he keeps that job and doesn't give it back. But I've seen him a couple times over the last few years, and still a nice guy, great as ever. And I think, boy, Chicago needs him, right? They need a good quarterback. They haven't had.
He's going to be good. There's little doubt in my mind he's going to be good. Just based on the preseason evaluation, he's going to be very, very good.
All right, we'll see. We'll be watching, and be sure to stay locked into Rivals.com. Every week we'll be doing Flashback Friday. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.